The gathering of power. The grand chamber of the Zetherian dominion shone with the light of 1,000 suns. Crystal walls stretched upward like frozen lightning, humming softly with energy from the Empire's central core. On the highest throne sat Emperor Kale Rix, his body a lattice of living crystal, each facet pulsing with blue light. Below him stood his generals, creatures of many forms all kneeling before the might of the Dominion. They ruled half the known galaxy. They had crushed countless worlds. And now, a new planet had appeared on their long-range scans, a blue-green sphere in an obscure arm of the spiral. Designation: Earth, announced the data keeper. Primitive carbon-based life forms recently achieved planetary unification. Estimated threat level: insignificant. A ripple of cold amusement passed through the chamber. Another conquest. Another world to fold beneath the Dominion's shining banners. But before the Emperor could speak, the chamber dimmed. A deep hum filled the air, ancient, heavy, alive. From the shadowed archway, 3 beings of light floated forward. Their forms shimmered like mist around bright cores. Every general in the room fell silent. Even Kale Rix rose from his throne. The Wanderers had arrived. The warning of the Wanderers. For millions of years, the Wanderers had crossed the stars. Neither conquerors nor servants, simply watchers. They had seen empires rise and fall. They rarely spoke. When they did, even the most arrogant rulers listened. The lead Wanderer's voice was soft, like wind through glass. "We come not to command, Emperor Kale Rix. We come to warn." Kale Rix tilted his crystalline head. "A warning? About what?" "About the world you name Earth," the Wanderer replied. "Do not provoke the humans." Laughter echoed through the hall. Generals turned to one another, their metallic forms shaking with disbelief. "Humans?" one sneered. "Barely beyond combustion engines. They fight among themselves with primitive weapons. They are insects on a rock." The Wanderer's light dimmed for a moment as though saddened. That is what all empires say before they learn what humans truly are. Kale Rix's tone hardened. "Explain yourself." The Wanderer's light brightened again, forming a shimmering image in the air. It was not a star map, nor a weapon diagram. It was history. The stories of Earth scenes flickered through the holographic air. A small group of humans hunting across endless plains, chasing prey for days without stopping. Cities rebuilt after earthquakes, fires, and floods. Soldiers standing their ground against impossible odds. Explorers walking into frozen wastelands, climbing mountains taller than clouds. And yet they survived. They always survived. "They are not the strongest," said the Wanderer. "Not the fastest. Not the most intelligent. But they endure. They adapt. And when threatened, they unite," the generals muttered among themselves. A small flicker of unease rippled through the room. Kale Rix tapped his staff against the crystal floor. "Endurance is not power. Endurance is desperation." "Then remember this," said the Wanderer. "Desperation is what ends empires." The air grew colder. The Emperor's defiance, Kale Rix, descended from his throne, light pulsing across his armor. "We have crushed civilizations that spanned centuries. What can one small species do to the Dominion?" The Wanderer's glow faded to a thin shimmer. "You cannot measure them by logic, Emperor. They fight as if born to die for each other. They love with a force you cannot quantify. When their world burns, they rise from the ashes and they remember who lit the fire." A moment of silence. Then the Emperor's laughter rang out like breaking glass. "You come into my hall to frighten me with stories of sentimental creatures?" He turned to his generals. "Let the galaxy see the price of defiance. Prepare the fleet. Earth will kneel." The Wanderers bowed, their forms dimming. "Then the galaxy will learn once more," said the lead one quietly, "that there are things even empires should fear." And with that, they vanished into light. The march to Sol, the Zetherian armada gathered, 200 warships of radiant crystal, cutting through hyperspace like burning comets. Each ship was a city of its own, powered by living energy and armed with weapons that could tear moons apart. Commander Serex Vel, young and brilliant, stood on the bridge of the warship Imperial Radiance. He had heard the Wanderer's words. They haunted him. He looked at the blue orb glowing on the star chart. Earth. "Commander," said his first officer, a scaled alien named Drak, "will arrive in Sol system within 6 cycles. The Emperor expects swift compliance." Sarex nodded but felt no triumph. Compliance, he repeated softly. Or extinction. He turned his gaze toward the endless black ahead. Something deep within him whispered that this conquest would not go as planned. First contact. The fleet dropped from hyperspace at the edge of the solar system, near the orbit of Neptune. Instantly, human satellites detected them. Communication channels across Earth went wild. Static, panic, disbelief. Sarex gave the order. Open transmission to planetary frequencies. The ultimatum was broadcast in every human language the Dominion could decode. This is the Zetherian Dominion. You will surrender your planet and resources. You will obey the will of Emperor Kael'rix. Resistance will mean annihilation. The message looped for an hour. No reply came. Typical, said Drac. They cower. But just as Sarex was about to end the broadcast, a signal appeared. A single message from Earth's central relay. A woman's voice, calm and sharp, echoed through the ship. We heard you. Then silence. Every officer on the bridge stared at the console. No plea for peace, no fear, just 3 words. Sarex exhaled slowly. They don't sound afraid. The demonstration Emperor Kael'rix demanded proof of dominance. The fleet descended toward Earth's orbit. One cruiser, the Radiant Judgment, targeted an uninhabited island in the Pacific Ocean. Fire, ordered Sarex. A beam of pure energy lanced downward. The island vanished in a bloom of white fire. The ocean boiled, steam rose miles high. Across the world, humans watched the explosion live on screens. Kael'rix's voice echoed across the fleet. Let them see what defiance costs. Sarex watched the burning sea below. Something inside him twisted. He had seen many worlds fall, but this felt different. The quiet before the storm hours passed. No surrender. Instead, the planet below seemed to change. Global data traffic spiked beyond measure. Energy readings rose across every continent. Reports came in. Military satellites repositioned, factories retooling, orbital stations going dark, then reappearing armed. What are they doing? Drac asked. Sarex stared at the data stream. They're uniting. Impossible. They were divided nations. Not anymore, Sarex said. Look, shared signals, joint operations. Every frequency now carries one symbol. On the holographic map, a new emblem flickered over Earth. A blue-white circle with a single word beneath it. Humanity. The final words of Part 1. In the Emperor's chamber, light years away, Kael'rix stood before a hologram of the planet. They resist, said his intelligence officer. But resistance only proves the need for discipline. Kael'rix smiled coldly. Then we will teach them their place. The wanderers far beyond the galactic rim watched silently from the void. They have lit the fire, murmured one. Now let the galaxy watch it burn. The aftermath of fire, the ocean still boiled where the Zetherian's energy beam had struck. Around the world, people stared at screens in stunned silence. Cities, governments, and homes, all watching a single message written in flame across the sea. They were not just witnesses. They were warned. In the silence that followed, a voice emerged. No longer a single nation's broadcast, but a unified message spreading across every satellite, every network. This is Earth Command. Effective immediately, all borders are suspended. The survival of humanity is now one purpose, and thus, in the ashes of fear, unity was born. The unity protocol within hours, the world changed. Factories stopped producing cars and consumer goods. They began printing armor plating and ship hulls. Power plants shifted to military command. Artificial intelligences built for entertainment were reprogrammed for tactical analysis. Even children knew the truth now. Earth was at war. In orbit, the first human defense grid began to form. Fleets of makeshift ships, old mining vessels, exploration craft, and transport carriers were pulled from service and outfitted with rail cannons, fusion torpedoes, and experimental reactors. Every engineer, scientist, and soldier worked without rest. Nations that once hated each other shared every secret they had ever kept. It was chaos. It was desperate. But it was humanity. The first engagement in the cold dark near the moon, 3 Zetherian scouts approached silently. Their mission was simple: observe, record, and confirm the humans' surrender. They never made it back. From behind the lunar shadow, a swarm of human drones streaked forward, tiny, fast, unpredictable. They carried crude explosives strapped to their hulls. One slammed directly into a scout's bridge. Another fired tungsten rods at relativistic speeds. The 3 Zetherian ships vanished in flashes of light. On the flagship Imperial Radiance, Commander Serex watched the battle feed in disbelief. "How?" he whispered. "Those drones weren't even built for combat," Drak hissed, his crystalline armor vibrating with unease. "They shouldn't have been able to track our stealth systems." Serex stared at the chaotic pattern of human movement on his screen. No formation, no order, yet somehow every attack landed where it hurt most. "Because they learn," Serex said softly. "Every second they're watching, they adapt." The Emperor's rage back on the Dominion capital. Emperor Kale Rix roared across the command halls. His light flared red, shaking the chamber walls. 3 ships destroyed by savages. His advisor trembled. "They must have found a weakness, my Emperor." Kale Rix turned, eyes blazing. "Then close it. Send the fleet. Burn their skies until the air itself begs for mercy." Within minutes, the order rippled across subspace. The entire armada began descent toward Earth. The sky burns. The night turned to fire. Hundreds of Dominion ships entered orbit, unleashing bolts of plasma into the upper atmosphere. Human satellites burst one by one. The oceans churned. And yet, for every human system destroyed, another rose in its place. From hidden bases beneath deserts, from caverns under mountains, from cities under the sea, Human Command launched its counterattack. Dozens of improvised ships ignited their drives, rocketing upward through the flames. They didn't have shields. They didn't have energy weapons, but they had speed. They had will, and above all, they had nothing left to lose. The turning point, the battle of orbit, was madness. Dominion ships moved in perfect formations, mathematical, precise, invincible. Human ships moved like chaos incarnate, darting, colliding, burning, and still fighting. One by one, the Dominion's logic began to fail. "Admiral, they are ramming us," shouted an officer aboard the shattered Crown. "Intercept them. We can't predict their trajectory. They keep changing course mid-burn." The transmission cut off in static as the ship exploded. Across the fleet, panic spread. Dominion computers were built to fight predictable wars. They had never seen anything like this. Serex stood on the Radiance's bridge, frozen as the tactical display blinked red. "They're sacrificing themselves," he whispered. "They'll destroy 10 ships just to take one of ours." Drak stared at him, trembling. "That's insanity." Serex shook his head. "No, that's humanity." Project Gaia storm hours turned into days. The orbit around Earth became a graveyard of burning wreckage. The Dominion still held numerical superiority. But something was happening they couldn't understand. Every time the humans lost a ship, they adapted their weapons faster. Every hour, their technology evolved. Then the signal came. Gaia storm online. Dozens of orbital mirrors, mining platforms converted to energy relays, turned to face the sun. In perfect silence, they reflected its light onto the Dominion fleet. Magnified 1,000 times, beams of pure solar fury seared through space, burning holes through the crystalline warships. "Shields failing," cried Drak. "They're using the sun as a weapon." Serex clenched his fists. They turned their own star into a blade. Across the comms, screams echoed as ships shattered one by one. When the storm faded, half the Dominion fleet was gone. The rest limped in silence, their glory turned to ruin. The Emperor's fallen the Dominion homeworld. Emperor Kale Rix watched in disbelief. "How?" he rasped. "How can a primitive race—" The Wanderer's light shimmered beside his throne. "You were warned," they said softly. "You measured them by what they had. You never measured them by what they are." Kale Rix struck out, his crystalline claws slicing the air where the Wanderer stood. But the being was gone. Only its voice lingered. "The fire you mocked has become the storm that ends you." The final stand. The remnants of the Dominion fleet retreated toward the edge of the system. Engines crippled, command broken. They hoped to regroup. But humanity followed. Thousands of drones and ships, some piloted, some automated, swarmed from the asteroid belt like a tide of light. Serex watched from his failing command deck. His ship's systems were dying, hull fractured, crew exhausted. Drak fell beside him, his crystal form cracked. "We were gods once, Serex," he whispered. "Now look at us." Serex closed his eyes. "Maybe gods forgot what it means to fear." Outside the viewport, a human cruiser loomed, scarred, burning, but alive. It transmitted one final message, broadcast to every corner of the galaxy. We are humanity. We asked for peace and you gave us fire. We offered silence and you gave us death. Now you will remember our name." The transmission ended as the human cruiser rammed directly into Serex's ship, detonating both in a burst of light that split the stars. The message that echoed the Dominion was shattered. "Entire fleet's gone," worlds once loyal now whispered of rebellion. And across the galaxy a phrase began to spread, a phrase no empire would ever ignore again: "Never provoke humanity." In the centuries that followed, the Wanderers recorded what they had seen. They called it the Age of Reckoning, where once the galaxy feared the Cytherians, now they feared the quiet world of blue and green, the world that had fought gods and won. Epilogue: in a forgotten corner of the galaxy, a single wanderer floated above the ruins of an old Cytherian outpost. Stars glittered in the distance. A faint signal echoed from Earth, a song carried on radio waves centuries old. "We choose to go to the stars, not because it is easy, but because it is hard." The wanderer smiled, its light soft and golden. "Yes," it whispered. "They always do what is hard." And as the music drifted into the endless dark, the stars themselves seemed to burn a little brighter, as if the universe had remembered the day humanity rose, and the empire that laughed no longer existed to tell the tale.